world with courage and confidence as we restore honor to our governments and to our schools and to our business organizations. Take action and pray and vote Joe Story, just an average American running for President of the United States. You can find my website, The Average Joe for America, or theaveragejoeforpresident.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Appreciate it. That ends the opening remarks of each of our candidates. We're now going to go to our panelists. The panelists will each ask a question. We will randomly pick a candidate instead of going back in order the way we did. The candidates will have 45 seconds to answer that question. Gentlemen, I'm going to be tough on the time so we can keep it moving here. The first question by Ambassador Terry Shoemaker will be to Dr. Hugh Court. Dr. Court?
Dr. Court, right here at Saint Anselm last week in a forum with former Speaker Gingrich and former Ambassador Huntsman, they both agreed that Iran would be the biggest foreign policy problem for the United States in the coming decade. I'd like to ask you, do you agree with that? But more importantly, what do you think the United States should do about Iran?
Very good question, Ambassador Shoemaker. I'm friends with General Tom McInerney. General McInerney and I advocate a military strike on Iran's nuclear sites as soon as possible. This is also what Senator Rick Santorum came out with in the last debate. Iran is very, very close to getting nuclear weapons. It could be by the Revolutionary Guard has been bragging they're going to have nuclear-tipped missiles by March, and the time to act is now. We must help Israel. We need to do this. If Iran gets nuclear weapons, America is going to be attacked in addition to Iran. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Court. Let me just ask a quick question of everyone at the panel. How many people believe the Iranians are in possession of the material to either make a nuclear weapon or have one already? Just show of hands. That's fairly unanimous, relatively unanimous. Okay, the second question tonight from Beth Lamontagne Hall of the Union Leader. That question will go to Mr. Michael Meehan.
Mr. Meehan, what reforms do you see are still needed to prevent another fiscal crisis like we had in 2007 and 2008?
Regarding the banking?
Yes.
Well, basically what I feel is that the housing, you can't just give people a house with no money down or anything. I've been in real estate for many, many years, and what they did is when things get to be a problem, then they walk away. So what the banks did was they turned around, and I don't blame them. I don't blame anyone, but the appraisers had to appraise for a higher sum of money, because if they didn't, the appraisers would get somebody else. The banks were making the loans, and they're charging the fees. And then all of a sudden you come up with all these different things. They got like arms. You got to eliminate that kind of stuff. You're at a low rate. Just do flat.
I'm going to have to stop you there, Mr. Meehan. Thank you very much. The next question will be from Ambassador Shoemaker, and it will be to Mr. Benjamin Lynn.
Mr. Lynn, we are on a college campus for this debate, and at least 12 states, including New Hampshire's legislatures, are considering laws to allow guns on college campuses. As you know, or probably have read, there was recently a second shooting murder at Virginia Tech. As a presidential candidate, what is your position on gun control, and particularly the issue of guns on college and university campuses?
I would say whatever campus security, or if you have local police or state police on the campus who are trained to carry a gun, those would be the only ones that would have a gun to protect the students. But like with students and professors, no guns allowed on campus. If a student is caught with a gun, you're expelled from the school. You're gone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynn. The next question from Beth Lamontagne Hall will be for Mr. Davis. Beth?
Mr. Davis, I wanted to ask you, what should the United States do in regards to the estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants now living in this country? Do you favor a path to legalization?
One thing I do is control the borders. We need to, I would give every alien in this country 1 year to register. I want their fingerprints. I want their ID. I'll give them a work visa, and I'll give them 4 to 5 years to be a part of this community, learn English, obey the laws, and then I'd give them citizenship. But we need to control the borders. This aliens issue is so big, nobody wants to touch it. But I'm not for amnesty, but I am for a path to citizenship.
Thank you.
The next question from Ambassador Shoemaker for Mr. Timothy Brewer. Mr. Brewer, 45 seconds. Jerry?
Mr. Brewer, this is the largest field of candidates at the number of 44 of you who have filed in the New Hampshire primary to run for president since 1992. Why do you think the field is so large this cycle?
Probably because Obama takes more vacations and plays more golf his first term. We can only imagine he'll double it his second term. So, we might as well go in there and do some work. So that's the only reason I could figure.
And what would you do about that, sir?
First thing I would do is try my ideas that I offered earlier and call Jesus and communicate with afterlife and make it a good deal for everybody. In the long run, what else do we have to work with?
All right. The next question is for Mr. Joe Story from Beth Lamontagne Hall.
Hello, Mr. Story. What do you believe the government should do to provide health care for people who do not have insurance yet can still not afford to go to the doctor?
I think one of the things that we should be doing is to encourage the education of people to become doctors, that we provide a lot of money to doctors for education, but we don't create institutions or locations where the people can access the doctors that have been trained. So I think we should do that. But beyond that, I think we should also create a different means of actually funding these programs. And I call it the American Benefits Corporation. For all the benefits that the government now has control of, we should move it into a benefits corporation. All of the companies that they've bought, all of the benefits themselves, if you put that into an organization and just provided stock for that, rather than having Social Security, if you bought stock in that company, and then you would have your retirement benefits that way.
Thank you, Mr. Story. I got to stop you there. I'm sorry. Next question from Mr. Betzler from, I believe, Ambassador Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Betzler, could you tell us here in New Hampshire what you offer America as president if you are elected that the so-called front runners like former Speaker Gingrich, Congressman Paul, Mitt Romney, and the others do not? What perspective or qualifications do you have that make you a better candidate?
Okay. Well, I guess as an underdog candidate, one of the benefits you have is that you can offer unpopular but realistic and effective solutions without worrying about losing your front-runner status and without being part of a larger party process, endorsements and donations. You can be free to evaluate the problems uniquely and specifically and offer the best solution as opposed to needing to pander to lobbyists or other interest groups.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Beth Lamontagne Hall, and it is for Mr. Christopher Hill.
Hello, Mr. Hill. In your opening statement, you talked about the lesser-known Americans. Can you tell me, if you were elected president, what you would do to help those people?
I can. We need to start by beginning to restore the middle class in America. The middle class is what made America great. And so the lesser-known Americans are out there, the people that I work with. I'm an airline captain. Lots of times I work the graveyard shift in the middle of the night. I work with people who are out there working for $10 an hour from midnight to 7 a.m. So we need to restore the middle class by first putting in place a tax system that lets them keep the money that they actually earn. And so if you go to my website, hill2012.com, I talk very specifically about allowing people to keep money up to $250,000 that they earn. And then above that, I'm open to the prospect of taxing the rich above $250,000 and letting them offer help to the people that do need help out there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lohman. The next question is for Mr. Lahman from Ambassador Shoemaker.
Mr. Lawman, you were recently mentioned in a Wall Street Journal article about the lesser-known candidates running for president. I assume you saw that article.
Correct. Yes.
And the article referenced that during a prior economic turndown that you unfortunately lost your business. And I wanted to ask you how you thought the current administration is handling the home mortgage crisis and the other financial crises that our country faces.
Well, I think the current administration is doing what he believes is the right path, but unfortunately it's not the right path for the Americans that are actually undergoing the downturn. So the Making Home Affordable plan, the cash for clunkers, all of these things have been temporary Band-Aids that have produced no long-term solution, and the numbers that have been presented to help millions of people have oftentimes only benefited a few thousand. So I think that has fallen short, vastly short of what his commitment and original obligation was. And what I think it's vastly short of what he was intending as well.
Thank you, sir. And finally, for Mr. Randy Crow, Beth, question.
Yes, Mr. Crow. Where are you? Yes, you're right there. In your opening statement, you talked about how you used to be in the gasoline business. Can you talk to me about your what you would do to put together a comprehensive energy policy if you were to become president?
Thank you. I think that, are y'all hearing me? I don't know.
Can hit the push button.
Oh, no. Okay. I think, and I think that because I was in the retail gasoline business in 1973, I blame the major oil companies. I believe that the wars that are going on in the world are manipulated by the major oil companies because they are trying to get rid of the supply, get the price up, and destroy the currencies. I think that this is a long-term game plan with them. I think that we've got to get tough with them. All this is about is running people out of business, and they've been doing, they ran us out of the business years ago when they cut down the supply. But I mean, this is what's going on right now, but there's a lot of things that you can do. You could make the companies divest. There are tons of things. They're monopolies and they need to be broken up.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. While our panelists get ready for our next round of questions, I want to ask you all a quick question, and we'll just take a minute to do this. All of you here have talked a little bit about your ideology, your thoughts, and your opening statements. How many of you would support whomever the Republican nominee is for president, whether one of you or one of the other candidates? Let's say Newt Gingrich was the nominee. How many would support the nominee of the Republican Party? Gingrich. Romney. Ron Paul. Rick Perry. All right, just checking.
And the rest of them too.
And the rest of them too. So you would support any Republican as opposed to this president. Would anybody vote for Barack Obama or support Barack Obama in any way if one of you or you yourself did not become the nominee of the party?
I think it depends on who the other nominee is.
Fair question. All right. Our next round of questions will begin this time with Beth LaMontagne Hall. The first question will be asked of Mr. Jeff Lawman. Beth.
Mr. Lawman, we have had attorneys and businessmen and even an actor as president. As an engineer, what would your expertise in that field, how would you bring that to the office of the president?
Okay, so first of all, I can't guarantee that more engineers in politics will solve all of our crises, but I can tell you it's a good start. And we offer a solutions-based program for basically everything. We're not bound by political rigidity, corporate financing, campaign finances. We believe that solutions are the best approach, even if they may not be the most popular. And one of the things that engineers have is they have an ability to iterate, simulate, and model solutions much sooner than actual implementation. So optimization is something that I think most engineers or scientists can offer that you will not find in any other profession.
Thank you, Mr. Lawman. Joe Story, your next question comes from Ambassador Shoemaker.
Mr. Story, one of the most important things presidents do is appoint justices to the United States Supreme Court. I anticipate that the next president will have at least 2 such appointments and perhaps even more. Could you share with us the names of some people that you might consider to appoint to the Supreme Court, or the qualifications and credentials that you would be looking for in such nominees?
The qualifications and credentials that I would be looking for would be a strict constitutional construction judgment decisions that they've had in the past and they plan on using in the future. Decisions made from the bench should not be based on precedent, even on Supreme Court precedents. They should be based on the Constitution. And we've lost so many of our values because of the court decisions that stretch the boundaries of what the Constitution actually says and means. And therefore, I think if you go to my website, theaveragejoeforpresident.com, you'll see some greater clarification on it, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Story. For Mr. Timothy Brewer, the next question comes from Beth Lamontagne Hall.
Mr. Brewer,
Hello.
can you tell me what role do you think that religion and faith plays in the presidency?
Everything I count on has to be measured. So that's what I do. I measure things. I paint pictures. From listening to people and on the internet and all over the place, I find that everybody is so close. Some people get so close with their ego that they think they're God sometimes. But when you listen to your inner thoughts, you get the solution to everything in life. And we're at the point now we can measure it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brewer. The next question will be for Dr. Hugh Court, and that will come from Ambassador Shoemaker.
Dr. Court, as we all know, North Korea's totalitarian dictator Kim Jong-il died this weekend. If you were elected president, what policies would you continue? What policies would you change? And how would you handle what could be the second most dangerous situation in the world and could become the most dangerous situation with that country, which is also close to nuclear weapons?
Yes, sir. It's a very grave danger. You know, North Korea just fired a couple missiles off the coast there of North Korea, a very antagonistic act. It's a very dangerous situation that this rogue country has nuclear weapons. I think we should really be very harsh on them economically. I feel like we should cut off all aid to North Korea until they give up their nuclear program. And I think then after we deal with Iran and possibly the problem of Pakistan has many nuclear weapons also, once we deal with those two countries, then I think we should turn our attention to North Korea. We should apply pressure to get them to give up their nuclear weapons, or I think we should take military action against them at some point.
Thank you, Dr. Court. The next question from Beth Lamontagne Hall is for Mr. Randy Crow.
Mr. Crow, can you talk to me about what the president can do and what kind of policies he can pass to help small business owners?
Well, I think that there's been a concerted effort to run all kinds of people out of business. I think I have a lot of problems with the Federal Reserve. One thing that I would do is get rid of it, and I would start issuing money by the government and not letting the banksters make the interest. I think that they are doing everything for themselves and big business, and I think that they're not loaning money. I mean, they got $13 trillion, and they're not putting it on Main Street. So there's a lot of things, but the first thing I think I'd do is get rid of the Federal Reserve, and that would be step one.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. The next question from Beth Lamontagne Hall is going to Mr. Meehan.
Hi, Mr. Meehan. The state of New Hampshire, the legislature has legalized gay marriage. Do you support gay marriage or civil unions?
No.
Would you mind elaborating on that?
No. I'll say this, though, that I don't care for the question, because at this point in the history of the United States, with all the things that are happening, this is not a national issue. This is a personal issue. It's, you know what, that they even go after candidates for asking things like this. I mean, come on, there's so many different things out there that we could be talking about and dealing about to fix the country. And I'm sorry, I just don't find this an issue at all.
Thank you, Mr. Meehan. The next question for Mr. Betzler is from Ambassador Shoemaker.
Mr. Betzler, if you were to win the Republican nomination for president and the convention after nominating you were to prescribe that you had to pick one of the current candidates that is appearing in the national debates as your running mate, and it had to be one of them, who would you pick and why?
I can't say I'm adequately prepared for that eventuality.
Well, give it a shot, Mr. Betzler.
Actually, I think Mitt Romney would bring a lot to the table.
And why?
There's no denying his success in business and his experience in government previously, and I have a lot of confidence that you could channel those skills. He would be a good second.
Thank you.
Beth, for John Davis, your next question, please.
Certainly. Mr. Davis, do you acknowledge that climate change is a scientifically proven fact? And if so, what do you think the government should do to help reduce its effects?
You know, I haven't studied on it a lot. There's so much information out there, it's hard to know what to believe. But I'm afraid I don't have a good answer for you, but I believe if we do drill like crazy in this country, we need to take care of the earth, we need to take care of the air, and be responsible. There's a middle ground there. But I don't we have some information, but I don't know if it's true or not, so I'd have to do some investigation on that.
Thanks.
For Christopher Hill, the next question from Ambassador Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr. Hill, I'm going to ask you to assume that one of your most generous campaign contributors has offered to finance a television ad for the New Hampshire primary for your campaign. What would you put in that ad and what would it say? What images and what words?
You know, the images that I would use are images that reflect how great this country is. You know, we're in a lot of trouble in this country. We've got $15 trillion of debt, 9% unemployment, and we're going off a cliff. But I've worked for an airline for 17 years. I've worked in 48 of the 50 states, and I've got to tell you, the images that I've seen around this country are incredible. Images like Mount Rushmore, images like the Grand Canyon, images like the face of people who are homeless that need our help. So I don't mind putting those images there, and the message would be pretty simple. It's us that have to step up to the plate. We can't count on anybody else anymore. It's got to be we the people. It cannot be politicians in this country. If we count on them again, we're going to go down the same road again, and we'll all be sitting back here next election cycle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hill. The final question, Beth, to Mr. Lynn.
Yes, hello. You talked earlier about the need to leave Afghanistan. Do you have an exit strategy for getting American troops out of the country?
Yes, I think they should be out of the country right now. We haven't lived up to the deadlines. Again, this president, before he was elected, said that him and the Democrats would end the wars in 1 to 2 years. We can't broadcast to the enemy and to the whole world when we're going to leave. We've got to slowly, gradually train their military and police force and slowly leave their country and hand the power of the country over to them without broadcasting it to the world. And also, too, in Iraq, I mean, the president, he's going to pull out troops before Christmas, but we're still going to have troops there. The war is not ended in December 2011. We're supposed to have troops in Afghanistan till 2016, and in Iraq till 2014. This president is not living up to his promises, saying that he was going to end the wars. With me, I'll end the wars on day one.
Gentlemen, that's our next round of questions. We're going to try to get to one more round of questions. In order to do that, we have to take an oath. We'll be brief. Okay, but we're going to try it. 45 seconds. Let's stay tight to it. We're going to begin with the first question from Mr. Joe Story, and it comes from Ambassador Terry Shoemaker.
Mr. Story, the Supreme Court's about to take up the issue of President Obama's health care law that was passed during his administration. Do you support that law? And if not, what would you replace it with?
Absolutely not. I don't support that law at all. I think we need to get the government out of the benefits business and also out of the business world altogether. The government should be the government and provide for our defense. That's based from the Constitution. If we separate everything out and put them into a benefits corporation and put GM and all the other corporations that the government has bought, actually we the people have bought, and we put those resources out along with also the payments that come from our physical resources where they sell them and put it into a corporation that operates for a profit and for our benefit, we could have some major improvements in our country.
Thank you, Mr. Story. For Mr. Betzler from Beth.
Hello, Mr. Betzler. I was wondering, what would your first act be if elected to president?
Well, obviously there is a separation of power in our government, and for my most important issue regarding returning fiscal discipline, it's not something that the president has a singular ability to enact on. So I think I would spend most of the time trying to bring that issue to the forefront of the American mindset through speeches and meeting with Congress so that they can apply pressure to the other branches of government to make that their top issue as well.
For Mr. Brewer, Ambassador Shoemaker.
Mr. Brewer, I would like to ask you to follow up on what you said in your opening remarks about the immigration issue. If you were elected president, what would you do with regard to that hot topic in American politics?
I support everybody on the planet. I don't care who you are. It's not my place to criticize, condemn, or complain about anybody. I offer a different option for the person that can criticize, condemn, and complain about everybody.
Mr. Meehan, the next question is for you, and that is going to come from Beth. Please.
Mr. Meehan,